So, Michael, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
We've got we're big fans of you and Leonardo da Vinci both. So we've got a lot of questions. I know you usually walk through the all these like steps you speak in the book, but maybe we can go some sounds like around it too.
We can be non-linear.
Yeah,
We can be
we want to be
improv.
non-linear. So
Improv. Bring it on. Yeah, cool.
my My main question to start um, is you spend a lot of time studying Leonardo's genius, let's say. So to start, I want to go with something truly basic. What's the that one thing that Leonardo would suggest for us to think better or more creatively, let's say?
Well, it really does begin with curiosity. It is our birthright. So the passion to learn and understand and the ability to follow up with that. It starts with the passion, but then he would say to refine your ability to ask questions, to ask follow up questions. And one of the great scholars of Da Vinci, Kenneth Clark, wrote about Leonardo. He said he was so curious he wouldn't take yes for an answer. So, so that's why it's the first principle, because it is the first thing you need to know. It's the first thing he would tell you. So that's the first thing I'm telling you since you asked.
So where's what's the definition of curious? How do you actually practice it? How do you enhance it from a Leonardo perspective, let's say? How do you make it like, because I heard you speak like how usually when we're children, mainly, we usually have this natural like inclination or tendency towards curiosity. But with time, we might like just lose it or like, what happens there? How can we like,
Sure. Well, yeah, that's right. Most of us need to have a personal renaissance to rediscover that birthright. And you're right also that it gets trained out of us. You go to school and your teacher's usually more concerned with you getting the right answer to a question rather than the fact that you're asking lots of your own questions. They say, we don't have time for that. We have to get through the curriculum. We have to get through the material. So we get trained to jump through hoops to look for the one right answer, which is the opposite of what we need to do if we want to discover our genius and think like Leonardo da Vinci. Now I have sympathy for teachers. They have too many children. They're trying to, they have pressure from the parents and the school board to get you through and touch all these bases and make sure you know certain things. So it's up to your parents, if you're lucky enough to have parents who understand this. And a lot of the fans of the book, How to Think Like Leonardo, over the years are parents who want to teach it to their children and help the kids develop. But I always tell them, you have to practice it yourself. Now, the good news is that there's also methodology for developing your curiosità. There's practices you can do. The simple and most basic is if you go to journalism school, they will teach you to ask who, what, where, why, when, and how about every issue. Well, who's involved? Who are the main players? How did they get there? Why are they there? What are they trying to accomplish? So that gives you a curriculum for asking questions just in the very simple, very basic. And then we go beyond that, beyond just the linear logical mind, because you can also learn this if you study logic, which I did, if you study philosophy, which I did, if you study debate, you learn how to drive through to get to what's behind what someone's saying and what is valid and how can they back it up and what are their sources. And are they just making it up? So learning that kind of rigorous, disciplined thinking is really the second principle. That's dimostrazione. That's how you learn to think for yourself. So you start with your passion. You learn who, what, where, why, when, and how. You drive through, you test everything through your own thoughtfulness. But there's also a more imaginative side. And one of the exercises in the book that seems to have the most resonance with people over the decades is the exercise of asking 100 questions in writing. And this is, we get people to do this. I still get letters and people send me emails and texts. I did this. It blew my mind. I got new ideas. It broke me out of my habitual way of thinking. And all you have to do is get a lot of paper, get an old-fashioned pen. Don't do it on your computer. If you like, put on some nice music. Have a glass of great Argentinian wine, from Mendoza, maybe a nice Malbec, and then just write 100 questions. And don't stop. Don't lift your pen off the paper. And by the time you get to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, you get out of your habitual mind and you start tapping into a different level of mind. And that's how we get beyond just the logical elements to another aspect of mind that is very much connected to genius.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, like mainly for adults to practice this because mainly they feel they've lost it, or maybe even do not even notice that they lost it. And because I think actually curiosity is mainly like maybe the source problem for a lot of like issues right now, mainly like tribalism or this lack of like having the curiosity to actually um, go into the perspective of another person or how it is to be or to know something else or to come from a different background, let's say. And practicing curiosity maybe like builds these bridges or connections, right?
It builds bridges and connections. It one of the secrets of empathy, of connection with other people, is to be curious and open to the fact that other people might see the world differently from you. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you that they do. And what if instead of defending yourself or trying to be right or making them wrong and judging everybody if they don't look at everything the same as you, which is a formula for being a miserable human being, what if instead you just get really curious about how other people are perceiving the world, how they're feeling about it, and the ability to do that and to do that in a objective and even loving way, let's just say it, just to be lovingly curious, tends to bring out the best in people. And then guess what happens? You might even learn something. You might be really surprised. I get surprised all the time by people when instead of judging them or putting them in a box, which I'm just like anybody else, I have the tendency to do that. But then I get curious and say, put that aside. What can I learn about this person? Let me ask them some questions, ask them some follow. And people love it when you show interest in them. They love it when you are genuinely curious. Oh my God, somebody's actually interested in me. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm a copywriter and Rory Sutherland, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a marketing genius. He says, be curious. Just be curious. As a marketing guy, as a copywriter, to be creative, you gotta have this like curiosity. And I think me and Tomas are having this kind of curiosity because we're talking to you, we're talking with Robin Dunbar, with Ronnie McCready, with a lot of people, amazing people from many parts of the world, and with all these amazing insights.
Yeah, because mainly it's I mean this is actually a truly Leonardo's way of saying, which I want to go deeper into, because um he actually talked about this. We can go deeper, but this idea of the science of art and the art of science, and how we can like combine, and how everything is like connected, let's say. I don't know if this is actually connected with a specific principle, maybe with sfumato or something like that, or
No, it's principle number 5,
okay,
arte scienza,
okay,
the
let's go.
balance of art and science.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about that, and how can we like preserve it, or maybe like how did Leonardo practice that kind of mindset, let's say?
Sure, sure. Well, we've got to go back to really understand Leonardo. This is one of the fun things that happened for me when I was involved in the process of writing this book, is I realized that in order to understand Leonardo, I had to understand the Renaissance. In order to understand the Renaissance, I had to understand the Middle Ages. And in order to understand the Renaissance and the Middle Ages, I had to understand the ancient classical world, the Romans and the Greeks. So it all goes back to the ancient Greeks, to Socrates, to Plato, to Aristotle, even to the pre-Socratics. But philosophy, the love of wisdom, is predicated on 3 things: understanding truth, understanding beauty, and understanding goodness. And how do all those 3 things relate? How do they all connect? So that's what philosophy is. Those are the kinds of questions. And remember, Socrates was famous for what? Curiosità. All he did was ask people questions.
Everybody hated him for that.
That's right. He made them very uncomfortable because he made them think. He took them out of their habitual way of looking at the world, and he tried to get people to think for themselves and really think about, well, gee, what is true, and how do I know what is true, and what is truly beautiful, and what is the good, what are ethics, what is ethical behavior, what is goodness. And these are universal concerns. This is in every culture, in ancient China, in Japan, in India. This is in shamanic traditions and Aboriginal traditions. Everyone's concerned with knowing truth, knowing the good. What is good? What is goodness? What is beauty? And how do they all fit together? So what happened in Europe for the Middle Ages is those questions got farmed out to religion. Religion just took them over and said, okay, we have all the answers. You don't need to think about it. As a matter of fact, you're not even allowed to think about it. And if you do, we're going to kill you. So that was not conducive to the development of individual genius and to the flowering of culture. So in Europe, there's a reason the Middle Ages were also known as the Dark Ages. And there was some great scholarship and some great ideas, but really it's 1,000 years in Europe where not much truly creative happened, not much great invention, exploration. And then all of a sudden you get this time, the Renaissance, the rebirth of the classical wisdom. And it's driven, like everything else, by technology. You know, you have the invention of the telescope and the microscope. So all of a sudden people can see far away and they can see small things. You have the development of navigational equipment. So all of a sudden you have explorers going all over the world. You have the invention of the long-range cannon. So the feudal fortress and feudalism was over because we could blow it up from far away. So all of this happened. And then you have the printing press. And you have the texts that were lost for years. All of a sudden, they're being printed and people are able to read. So you have this information explosion. And, you know, of course, it was all driven by 2 main things, in my view. One was the plague, because the plague caused people to question everything and not just take the answers that they were getting from the religious authorities, because clearly whatever they were telling them wasn't working. Everybody was dying, including all the priests and nuns and everybody else. So people got curious. Maybe there's, we'll still be religious, but maybe there's something else, some other way of learning about the truth to help us. So people got really curious, and that's why they wanted to explore and study and learn. So it helped to set off this explosion of learning. But the other thing is very practical. It was the Medici and the development of really the beginning of modern accounting and business practices. So all of a sudden we were talking about marketing before. The Medici said, we're going to use this guy Leonardo and this other guy Michelangelo and this guy Raphael. We're going to use them to market our brand. And then the Duke of Milan said, no, I'll take Leonardo, that he can market my brand. So the visual arts of that time were the way of communicating with the people. There was no internet. There was no TV. There was, however, an altarpiece. And if you got a superstar like Leonardo or Michelangelo or Raphael or Botticelli to paint it for you, then that was really good for your brand. So the contemporary capitalism was funding innovation, funding exploration, trying to say, well, we want to be safe from any future plagues. And then boom, there's a flowering of the quest for truth, beauty, and goodness, probably unlike anything else, except actually, believe it or not, what we're going through now, even though it doesn't seem like it.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what we're going through now is we have something now. We have stuff like Leonardo would just be in awe of the internet and of AI. We have this 6.5 hour video course that I made during the pandemic. It's very high quality, and it's like my full How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci seminar that I do for corporations. We were trying to figure out a way to make it available to people, for a lot less cost than bringing me into a company. And so, we have a website for it, and we try to promote it. So we now have an Ask Da Vinci AI that's getting better and better. So it's still, I have to say, it's still not as good as me, but it's catching up. So Leonardo, just a thought, like on your phone. Here's my phone. And what I can do on my phone, if I know how to do it, and it's not hard, I can get access to any aspect of human knowledge. And I could find out any poetry, philosophy, literature, mathematics, how to fix the disposal in my underneath my sink. It's all here. So all human knowledge is available for free if you know what to ask and you know how to cut through. Now, the other side of it is there's a massive hell also right here of lies, corruption, trying to hijack your nervous system, trying to make you want things that you don't want, and pervert your whole life. So it's really important to learn to think like Leonardo da Vinci so you can know how to navigate this.
Yeah, you can be curious the wrong way. You can fall into a trap very easily also.
Very much so. So discernment, and the ability to corroborate and check your sources and check your emotions so you don't just get I see so much in so many fields is aiming to get people emotionally triggered so they feel insecure about themselves. They feel, I'm too fat, I'm too old, my skin isn't perfect, I could be more attractive, nobody will love me, whatever. So I have to buy this thing and buy that thing and buy this thing and buy that. And It's hell. It's hell. You will never heal through products.
No, that's actually how it works. You just make people feel bad and then give them the solution. It's pretty dark. Um,
Yeah.
but um,
I try to make people feel good, and then I tell them, if you want to feel even better, here's what you can do.
Of course, yeah, it's insane. I mean, as Ron said, you can be curious the wrong way, or just like main curiosity can be like just captured by the wrong like hyper stimuli like you got on your phone. But at the same time, as you said, we got like access to a lot of knowledge. I actually the other day I heard like Daniel Schmachtenberger. I don't know if you know him. He was talking about this study about how like history genius had like mainly some the most common factor was this kind of like aristocratic education where they were taught always by the best in their fields, like they had like tutoring by the best people of their time, like Marcus Aurelius and Aristotle and all those kinds of examples. Do you know if what where Leonardo came from in that kind
Yeah, I don't
of
think, well, that's not true with Leonardo,
okay.
because he was not allowed to have a classical education because he was born out of wedlock. But instead, he did get an amazing practical education at the studio of Verrocchio. So he went to trade school and studied with a master artist of the time. And so Verrocchio was certainly one of the best, but it wasn't. Leonardo was predominantly self-taught. Same thing, by the way, Thomas Edison, one of the greatest geniuses of all time, the greatest business genius. And people love to talk about, Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or something, but Edison invented 3 entirely new industries. Edison invented the illumination of the planet. He invented sound recording, the music industry, and he invented the movies. All the technology, the key technology for those 3 were invented by Edison. 1,098 United States patents. Edison was taken out of school because he couldn't sit still and he asked too many questions. And he was homeschooled by his mother. And he just did a lot of reading. So if possible, I would say, yeah, sure, if you can, get the finest aristocratic education, but it's certainly not required for genius.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I meant that maybe through this kind of technologies like AI, we mainly get some sort of both in one like technology, let's say, because you're driven by your curiosity, but at the same
Yes.
time you got like maybe top information or top like access to knowledge
Yes.
from all the best sources, let's say. So
We could call it the democratization of genius.
yeah, exactly. So I want to talk. I want to go back a little bit to something
Sure.
that is connected. So we're talking about this idea of everything is connected. You said it was principle number 5. What's its name?
Everything is connected is principle number 7.
Oh, 7. Okay.
The
So
connection of art and science is principle number 5.
oh, okay. The connection of art and science, because I feel I think this might be true for a lot of people, mainly children, like people who are in development right now or educating themselves right now, because we've got all this like we're losing a bit of curiosity, maybe as a culture, or to like not take like half truths and just like go deeper into knowledge, let's say, or wisdom even. And at the same time we've got like everyone specializing themselves. So I think for me it was a bit of a problem, this idea of liking science and liking art and like having to choose that, and mainly like the one I didn't choose like was kept in the dark. And how can people, like
Yeah.
children, keep that, like that mix between those two great things?
Pardon me, it's a great question, because there is a tendency to push people towards specialization. And frequently what happens is somebody says, okay, I'll become an accountant, or I'll become an attorney, or I'll become a doctor. And that's it. They spend all their time just doing their discipline in a linear way. Or the other side is somebody says, I'll become an artist, and I'll become a dancer, and they just go crazy with it, but they don't pursue the kind of discipline that's needed in order to actually succeed in the world. So we're all familiar with the starving artist. There aren't as many starving lawyers and starving accountants, which is why people become accountants and lawyers, and they say, don't go into the arts. Well, here's something that's really fascinating. So I've been blessed in my life to meet many real geniuses, like Nobel Prize winners. For example, I'll talk about one of them, Murray Gell-Mann. Murray won the Nobel Prize in physics in 1969. So you've heard of quarks. Murray figured them out in his head. Okay, so he's a theoretical physicist, and he's doing these equations in his mind, trying to figure out, he's curious about truth and beauty, because he wants to know, what's the smallest particle? What are atoms made out of? And he told me at one point, I interviewed him, he told me, he said, it's a strange thing that in theoretical physics, an equation that is beautiful is more likely to be true. So he came up with this beautiful equation, and he wrote it out in a paper, and people said, you're crazy, whatever, because it's tough to get your ideas accepted. It's a very competitive field and very tough, and people are reviewing each other's work and very critical. And except then a couple of years later, they built this reactor, this atom smasher, and they smashed the atoms together, and they measured what happened. They said, oh my God, Murray's right. And that's how you get the Nobel Prize. So now he was, an unbelievable mathematical and physical genius, a physics genius. When he was 5 years old, he was doing advanced equations. He skipped grades in school. I forget, he graduated, when he was 12. I mean, it's just crazy. But what was his great love besides physics? Nature, art, culture, the study of birds, wine. So he had an amazing collection of pre-Columbian art in his home, like museum quality. He collected, everything was curated. He could give you a discourse on each piece of art. He had an amazing wine cellar, which I actually organized for him, which is part of how we became really good friends, because then we would drink wine together. One of his goals in his life was to see every species of bird. Now, he didn't quite make it. There's quite a few, but he saw many, many of them. So my point is, when you get to the highest level, geniuses tend to have a passion for both art and science. And it's the same thing with great musicians and great painters. They're very scholarly, they're very detailed, they're very disciplined, they're very mathematical. They're not just, let me be spontaneous and see what I feel like doing today. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci wrote in his notebook, apparently he had this written over his studio. He said, in modern terms, if we translate what he wrote, it was something like, if you're not a mathematician, don't even come to my studio. Because art and science work together as ways of understanding truth, beauty, and goodness.
I actually think that Plato's Academy had something similar. Like, if you don't know geometry, you can't come in here. It was the same thing. And yeah, so I think, Michael, maybe we gotta make a movement like the return of the polymath. That's my idea.
Well, I'm with you. And let's go back to the academy, because we talk about being an academic, but it comes back from the academy. But my favorite word from there is the university. The university is, in other words, what is the universal knowledge we must all know? And it's art and science and ethics. It's everything that Socrates and Plato and Aristotle were studying and teaching, which were then evolved by the scholars of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. This is just in the West. And now it's all available to us for free on our phones.
But we're watching people do TikTok dances and stuff like that.
Well, it's good to dance
so-
too, but
Yeah, I mean, it is good to dance too. So mainly, like, the only thing separating us from like actually like taking like following our curiosity into like subjects, like virtuous subjects, let's say, instead of like just watching TikToks or porn, let's say. I think like maybe discipline is like the difference. Is discipline anywhere inside the equation of Leonardo, let's say?
so could you just ask that again? I'm not sure I
Like,
quite understood the question.
is discipline like anywhere, like a relevant like part of the equation of the Leonardo, like steps
Yeah, okay,
or
okay.
principles?
So well, here's the thing is, I don't, the idea of discipline makes it seem as though you have an errant nature that isn't really oriented towards truth, beauty, and goodness. So you have to whip it into shape. And I think if we set the right environment for children, they discipline themselves naturally. That you don't have to, because the process of discovery, the process of learning, and when you're learning in a playful way, is thrilling. It is self-rewarding. So, but if you make kids sit down and go through boring things, and well, then it's not. Then you have to discipline yourself to do that, because you don't want to do that. So, how do you make it engaging? How do you make it fun? How do you make it playful so that it's in alignment with our natural orientation? And then, same thing. We have this strange dichotomy in our culture where there's people who are just either way too strict and don't have much fun at all, or have no restrictions at all and are so indulgent and can't function. And people go back and forth between these. Like, I watch podcasts, and a lot of the podcasts, that focus on young men, they're talking about overcoming your porn addiction. Apparently it's a big thing, and I get it. I guess because with modern tech, I didn't grow up with that. We had Playboy magazine when I was growing up, so you couldn't really get too addicted. Now I understand how it's a hazard for young men growing up. So then they try to overcome it, and they're just like Puritans, and and then they see people who are drinking too much or using too many drugs, and they're like, I'm never going to touch a drink. These are the two polarities that I think are both so sad. I suppose it's better to be on the too strict than too crazy one. But what about a life of moderation? What about a life where you know the art of enjoyment, where you can have sensual pleasures without overindulgence, where you can enjoy wine with dinner without getting drunk or sick? That's, I'm a champion of living a beautiful life that is a life of moderation. So, and why? Why? Because, like, I love wine. We were talking about wine before we started recording. I love wine, but I don't drink too much. You know why? Because I want to have it again the next day. So I have a glass of wine with my dinner, maybe two. And then I stop because I don't want to get a headache. And I want to have wine with dinner the next night because it goes really well. Now, I don't drink any other time because, random alcohol really isn't good for your brain. And if you make and it does have a tendency to be addictive, especially depending on your family's background and your proclivities and so on and so forth. So err on the side of moderation so that you can have more pleasure the next day. And then the next day and the next day and the next day. And that's a secret of living your life, is curating each day so that you get the optimum benefit for yourself and everybody else in such a way that you're poised for more benefit the next day. That's why you should save some money. Don't just spend everything on. Save your money, invest your money so you have more money later. I mean, these are things every child should grow up with, but like what I'm saying now seems like revolutionary information to a lot of people.
Yeah, moderation is key. I think with the wine, in my case, it's difficult to have that moderation, but with the other things, I'm pretty much okay. You talk about the pleasures of life. I connected that in somehow with you said that Da Vinci talked about the senses and how to make them.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
The refinement of the senses, sensazione. So this is really to do with the appreciation of beauty. So again, unless you're in art school, most people aren't learning how to appreciate beauty. And I'm not talking about expensive, fancy things. I'm just talking about flowers. The sky. I'm looking out my window. It's unbelievably beautiful. This is my office. Everywhere I look, there's something beautiful. Now, maybe, you work in an office and you're in a little cubicle and you don't have a beautiful picture window. And I get it. People are in different states in their life in different situations. So then you need to think, how can I make this little space? What can I put here that will remind me the beauty of every breath? That's a pretty beautiful thing. It's free. It's available to us any moment. Feel the feeling of the air coming in your nose, your nostril. What's better than that? That's like an exquisite pleasure that's available. And by the way, when you bring your attention to your breathing and you slow it down a little bit, it regulates your nervous system. It helps you feel calmer. It improves your heart rate variability. It helps to balance the two sides of your brain. It changes your brain waves. It improves your memory. So just the beauty of and by the way, and there's programs on your phone for free on how to do coherent breathing, how to do box breathing, how to do pranayama. So just you could just make breath your theme for a month and learn different breathing exercises, practice them every day. And you could do them at your desk. You could do them in a meeting. You could do them on the subway. You could do them in traffic. and transform from stress to a beautiful experience, and it's in your control.
So I think this is really interesting because I know we can go a little bit deeper into into how to maybe like get more in touch with our senses, like according to Leonardo. But I was thinking about the thing that we were talking before this, and how people like go from like or super strict discipline or just like random chaos, and how finding moderation actually needs awareness,
Yes.
because without awareness it's really hard to find moderation because you don't understand what's happening.
It's true. And, you know, and a missing link for a lot of people is a role model, is seeing somebody demonstrate this, because you don't know it's possible if you've never seen it. You know, when I was lucky, you know, my mom and dad knew how to enjoy wine and food. You know, when they were younger, they would drink too much, but they, you know, my dad was a doctor, my mom was a psychologist. They couldn't afford to show up to work the next day with a hangover, so they just didn't. And then they, you know, I could just see they just moderated it, so they just had wine with dinner, and they introduced me to the love of, you know, this way of living life. I saw my dad is 97, he's about to turn 98. And last Saturday night, I went out to dinner with him, and we had two fabulous wines. He said, "You choose them, I'll pay for them." Whereas on the other hand, you know, it's, having said that too, I also, I when I went out into the world of work and I was traveling and I'm doing seminars all over the world, and I'm doing things for very successful corporate people, CEOs, and you know, they want to go to great restaurants and order expensive wines. And I'm thinking, this is great because I'm getting paid to go out and drink great wines. But then I saw a lot of people drink too much and embarrass themselves. And I thought, you know, that wouldn't be good for my career. Plus, you feel like crap the next day. I'm not going to do that. It was just, so I watched bad role models. I saw people, I said, that's not a good idea. Don't do that. So, but I think I was blessed because I had my mom and dad who I just saw them make, you know, my mother's a half Italian and a great cook. And my dad went into New York and took a wine class from a master of wine, and used to bring home these wines for us to try. So, you know, we were introduced to very high quality, tiny little amounts, a real appreciation and conversation about the wine. And, you know, so this is like in Italy, that's why I love going to Italy, because this is dolce vita. You know, it's an art of living. It just, people in Italy don't usually drink too much. They have wine with dinner. You know, big thing of agua minerale. They're staying hydrated. The food is fresh. It's beautiful. People have the best meals and nobody's fat because they're not you know, snacking on things in between meals, because they have a satisfying, wonderful meal, and they have it with other people. The Italian expression is a tavola non si invecchia. You dine with other people, you don't grow old. So it's culture. You know, we're losing, one of the things we are losing in the TikTok-y world is culture and human interaction and the warmth of connecting directly with other people. And, you know, so my guidance is, whenever you can, go be with other people. Eat real food.
Be in nature, no?
Be in nature. Pay attention to your breathing. Listen to beautiful music. Surround yourself with beautiful flowers. You don't have to be rich to do any of those things. You can be on a budget. You can pick one daisy and put it on your table. You can have the simplest meal, and it could be exquisitely delicious. You could share, a bottle of, you can still get a fantastic wine, a Malbec from Mendoza, super high quality, $20, right? And you can make that last for 3 or 4 nights, or share it with 4 friends. So it's $5 each. All of a sudden, you're drinking a great wine. You're having this beautiful experience. You're talking about philosophy and thinking like Leonardo da Vinci,
I
right?
mean,
I find this amazing about Leonardo da Vinci because I think like he's like a superhuman. He was like unlike anyone else. He
Well, he
talked about
represents all of
uses.
our potential. He represents all of our potential. So he inspires us because he was this one person who had all these talents and abilities. And that's why we're talking about him. Because those of us who want to live a fuller, richer, happier, more beautiful life, he's a great person to inspire us. And by the way, I just want to add too, just, if there's some people who, for whatever reason, don't drink wine, can't drink wine, it doesn't agree with them. Chinese tea. I have a collection of Chinese teas. One of my friends is a tea master. The complexities and the deliciousness of a fine Chinese tea, a tiny little cup of it, is a way to take your everyday life and all of a sudden you're in this transcendent spiritual realm where something from nature inspires your consciousness, and then you can talk about that tea and all of a sudden you're writing poetry. So this is not just stuff I write books about. This is the way I live just, for the last pretty long time.
yeah, that's true. I believe you. We went through. I have so many questions. We went through the like passion, curiosity. Then we went through like this last part was mainly sensazione.
Yes.
So, is there any specific ways like Leonardo used to practice specifically to cultivate, let's say, senses, or is it?
Yes.
Can we talk about a
The,
little?
the simple methodology is to compare things because your mind likes comparison. So let's say you wanted to have a sensazione experience with Chinese tea. You might get an oolong from one side of the mountain and an oolong from the other side of the mountain, from the same tea master. And then you brew them up. And now if you have just one tea, it's amazing. And you say, what does it remind me of? Because there's no wrong answer to the question, what does it remind me of? You're there, and all of a sudden you're transported to that side of the mountain. But then you pick up the other glass, and now you're on the other side of the mountain. And now you start noticing differences between the two sides of the mountain. And then you express them, and other people at the table express them. And if you like, you can write them down in your journal. So first of all, you get a free trip to China or Taiwan. Not free, it costs you the cost of the tea. But you're experiencing something that your brain really likes to say, I get this, but how is this different? It makes both experiences more outstanding. So then you do the same thing. You want to learn about classical music. Listen to Mozart, Marriage of Figaro. Listen to it conducted by 2 different conductors. It's amazing the difference. One of my favorite arias, everybody loves, there's this great aria called Nessun Dorma. And most people know that, Pavarotti sings it to perfection. It's one of the, it's da, 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 da. I wish I could sing it. But what I can do is you can ask your device to play different versions of it. So you can hear Pavarotti sing it. You can hear Carreras sing it. You can hear Domingo sing it. you can hear 5 different guys you never heard of sing it. And so you're listening to the song that you already love, and then you're saying, gee, what are the differences between these different instruments, these different human instruments? And you'll hear subtleties in the notes and in the song and in the way it's performed that just deepen your love of that song and the memory you have of it. And by the way, if you have a device and you can get all this for free on YouTube. So again, this is all available to us for free. But the point is, compare different versions of whatever it is you want to learn about. And of course, try to get the best that you can get. Whatever, to get the best tea, get the best chocolate, whatever it is, benchmark the best. Then you'll develop taste. It's a great thing to do. The younger you are, try to go out and make it a mission. Go out and just try to find even a little taste of the best of whatever you want to learn about. Who are the best painters? Go to the museum. It's free. Go walk through the room of Monet and then go walk through the room of Manet. What's the difference between an O and an A? Right? And see how it moves you and how you feel about it.
Yeah, I think usually the last few times I went to museums, actually, I saw people like with their phones taking pictures. It's not that I don't want to do that, but I just saw too many people like actually going to the painting, like looking the painting through the phone, taking the picture and going away, not even experiencing the having the experience of the painting. I saw a lot of that, and I think that
Mona Lisa is hell. You got
It's hell.
thousands of people. Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. I was at the Louvre. The last time I was at the Louvre, everybody was taking a picture of themselves seeing the Mona Lisa instead of looking at the painting.
Yeah, I mean it's insane, but at the same time, I think that this like hyper development. I don't know if you know Ian McGilchrist. He talks about like this predominance of like most like left brain worldview, let's say, and how even when we go to the museum, we go and watch art through this kind of lens that actually, if you try to see like in a convergent, like you say convergent, or like a logical perspective, a painting, what you're gonna do, like find like specific features and then add them all up and find like if the result is like positive or negative, you're not having the experience.
So there's nothing wrong with doing that. But if you only do that, you're really missing the whole point. So what I always like to do with people, whether it's wine or art or music, give them all the facts. Here, it's really interesting to know all the facts. Where did the artist grow up? How is he or she influenced? Why do they chose this particular theme? What different periods did they have? What medium did they use? What were their great influences? What was the effect that they had? Blah, blah, blah. It's really interesting. I love learning all that stuff. But make sure you also say, what do I feel? How does this make me feel? What's my emotional response? How does this move me? And then go within and feel that.
Yeah.
And then preferably share that with somebody else.
Yeah, it's crazy because I usually find this like typical art discussions where like there's people like they go like stand besides a Rothko or something and they say like it's just a square. And I mean, where are you looking it from? It is a square actually, but it's much
really
more
cool square. I used to think that when I first saw Rothko, I said, how did this guy make all this money painting this stuff? But then
until I saw one live, it blew me away.
Right? Did you go to the Rothko Chapel?
I just saw one once in my entire life at MoMA, and it completely reconfigured my idea of him.
Whoa! It's so what's so great is when you had that experience, you're re-experiencing your connection with the genius of Rothko. just as, and you mentioned it, and my experience, the richness, the magic, the spiritual something that's coming through those fine shades, like what it tells us about our soul and our being and the unknown and your unconscious. Wow. It's so amazing. And, but if you just go there and take a picture of it and say, okay, I saw the Rothko, you're not going to have that experience. So in the Da Vinci book, there are a whole series of exercises, like how to go to an art museum, what to do, how to access what we're talking about, because I'm passionate about it for reasons that I know you understand.
I know, and I'm passionate about it too. And I think they actually have this, and we're continuing, but they have this thing in common. I heard you talk about how Leonardo did like this, like painting with really thin paint, like lots of times. And Rothko actually has the same thing. When you studied what he did, he painted like a lot of different, like, different layers, like really,
layers,
really thing, and you experienced that. Say so. One more thing, you were talking about the mystery and the unknown in the artistic experience, and I think this is related to this, which I actually like the most, which is sfumato. And I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So sfumato, of course, is the term that art critics coined to refer to the hazy, mysterious quality in Leonardo's paintings, which he did achieve through the gossamer thin application of hundreds of layers of paint, so that the light seems to suffuse magically from behind the canvas. And what it represents is the most distinguishing characteristic of the creative mind, which is the ability to embrace the unknown, to smile in the face of uncertainty. And in a complex world, that ability is ever more important. So yes, and it's every great creation, every transformation, every great leap came after some kind of period of confusion, of unknowing, of uncertainty, of letting go of old structures, old ways of seeing and knowing. And it's not like it's magically all of a sudden there's a happy new everything. There's a lot of unknown and challenge in the path of creation, but the ability to persevere. I like to use Leonardo's St. John, which is also in the Louvre. The St. John is posed like this. He's touching his heart. Says, use your emotional intelligence. He's pointing up to heaven. He says, have a higher purpose. And he's got a smile, like, don't take yourself too seriously. Keep your sense of humor.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like actually creativity needs like this kind of creativity as a principle. It needs like this kind of like stressing environment, let's say, or something that stresses the spirit, for us to like have the necessity even to develop the capacity, right? I don't know. I always thought that it needed a little bit of stress in the equation, like just the necessity to build something new, to think about it.
There's a lot of stress in that part of the equation. That's why, how do you think I learned all this stuff about breathing and
yeah, exactly.
Right. It's just if you want to keep evolving your creativity, you're going to continually let go of old ways of doing things, and that can create feelings of insecurity and unknowing. But it's you imagine Murray is trying to figure out quarks, and he comes up with something he thinks is pretty cool, but for 2 years, everybody says, nah, no way. But he has to keep trying to rewrite the paper.
It's always the same case.
It's always the same case. Science, art, nothing. When you look at somebody's resume, I've had clients who are CEOs of major corporations. And I work with them through their whole career. When they got promoted, now you're the CEO, and now they're retired. But if you look at their resume, or when they give them awards and honors, And it makes it sound like they just went from one super achievement to another and there was never an issue. Well, guess what? It's never true. There's failure, there's mistakes, there's confusion. But what they all have in common is they persist. They stay engaged.
That's
They
what
never give up.
that's what I wanted to ask. If
Yeah.
you worked with like scientists and CEOs and all kinds of like interesting like achieving people, let's say.
Yes.
Would you say that's the specific trait you find in common in like,
Total persistence. And the ones who hired me, great sense of humor. And a willingness to put learning and growth above ego. So, I mean, there's a certain humility required to say, I'm going to pay somebody else to be my coach. I'm going to pay someone else to lead my team through this learning experience. So, but that's why I've become great friends with many of my clients over the years, because they're genuine. And I've learned so much from them because they've been great visionaries who cared about their people and wanted to make the world a better place through their business. That's who I work with.
Yeah, I totally agree about those traits. I'm glad you made friends with these people. It must be pretty interesting. I mean, just to maybe wrap it up, I just wanted to know specifically if you would like, if someone wants to like awaken their creativity or like their hidden potential, what would you recommend to, what habits or what kind of behavior would you recommend them to
Well, literally like read the book and do all the exercises. That really practice. It's a whole curriculum. Somebody once wrote to me when the book first, and they said, there's too many things in this book. It would take me 10 years to get through it. No, it'll take you the rest of your life. But it's my lifetime of what I've learned about this. How do I put it into something that is a guide for you? So yeah, it's in the book. Take the video course if you like to learn on video. That's the curriculum. I've written 17 other books. After you finish the Da Vinci one, you can read the other 17. They'll keep you busy for multiple lifetimes. But that's why I'm working on the next one, because I'm always learning. And how can I develop and grow? And then how can I share it with as many other people as possible? That's what I love to do. That's what I will always do. I will never stop doing it. So there we are.
Talking about humility, do you know other authors that you like, that you would recommend?
Sure. Who I really like? Stephen Pressfield. He wrote this great book called The War of Art. And he addresses something that holds a lot of people back, which is their resistance. Their like the unconscious blockage that stops them from applying all the Da Vinci principles. And one of the great things about it is it's a very small book, but very powerful. So everybody knows The Art of War, which I also recommend, but The War of Art is for contemporary people who are in this realm. It's hard to do. That's one of my favorites of recent years.
Thanks for that.
Sure, and I got plenty others too. Start with the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Read that over and over and over and over and over again, because that's what I just read it over and over and over and over and over again. So I go back to a lot of the classics, but then you see like the contemporary authors that we like are taking these they're taking Marcus Aurelius, for example, and they're putting it in something that then is on podcasts, which is great. It's great because what our job is to take this universal ancient wisdom and make it contemporary, make it relevant.
That's a great insight. It's great. I thank you for your recommendations. We love your work. You're truly passionate, and that's amazing. That's really inspiring. So where can people find this, like video or your book? We're
Yeah,
gonna put it in the description, but your video, where
sure.
can
Thank you. Best place is michaelgelb.com, Gelb, michaelgelb.com. When people go to michaelgelb.com, they can sign up for the free newsletter. They can also search around on the website. There's a lot of free stuff. When you sign up, we send you a 14-page guide to mind mapping, free. There's videos of me teaching Qigong and Tai Chi. There's meditation, there's breathing exercises. There's all sorts of fun stuff, articles on a whole range of different subjects, videos, all free. And then you can also get the link to get a free lesson of our video course. And if you like it, you can buy it. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you
Sure.
for
Thank you, guys.
everything.
Great to talk to you.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.